So when we last left off, we were talking about irrationalities and that we have certain emotional tendencies which come out. And one could be illustrated from the game of Ultimatum. And the way the game of Ultimatum works is that I'm offered a certain amount of money and I'm going to share it with you. And if the amount I share with you is good enough and you say yes, we both get to keep it. If you say no, then neither of us gets squat. And so I'm offered $100,000. I'm going to offer you $1. Do you take it? Well, most people would say no, they wouldn't take it. Why? Because I'm getting all this money and you're only getting a little bit. So that's not right. Well, the reality is it is right. And it's because if you went by pure economics, your choices are to get 0 or to get $1. So you should take the $1. However, people don't take the $1 for the simple reason we have something within us called the doctrine of fairness. If we don't believe it's fair, then we won't take the deal. And that's a big misconception about a lot of rich people. A lot of rich people, it's not about the money, it's about the deal itself. Is it fair or not? I had helped a friend with a project and he took me out for a steak dinner. And what ended up happening is he wanted extra sour cream and they charged him like, I don't know, 50 cents for it or something like that. And he just went through the roof. And he said, it's a $50 steak and you're trying to nickel and dime me on sour cream. And he just kept going on and on about it. And finally it's like I reached into my wallet, pulled out $1 and say, here, I'll pay for it. And he's there, no, it's the principle of it. But we have a doctrine of fairness and it motivates us. The next part is bounded rationality. And bounded rationality comes about because we have emotional biases. When we make decisions, we can only take in so much information and there's only so much on hand. And not only that, but we're also restricted by the time that's available to us. And so that affects how we make decisions. And so people make the most satisfactory decision instead of the optimal decision. An example of how cognitive capacity works is if I give you a 300-page paper written by somebody from Caltech, it's just too much for your mind to digest quickly. You make decisions without knowing everything, and then later on you go, well, with hindsight, I think I would have done this. And time available, why do they put candy bars by the cash register? And the reason why is because it's an impulse buy. Because you're by the cash register. You don't have a lot of time to make a decision. They do that on purpose. Because if you sat down and rationally thought about, should I have a candy bar? The answer would be no. There is no good reason. And so they're playing off of something else. One aspect of behavioral rationality is called prospect theory. And again, we have limited capacity, we have biases, and the probabilities are known, but they don't make any difference of how people make decisions. And a big part of prospect theory has to do with gain and also pain. And that's that what they have found out is that your penchant for valuing gain is about 1/3 compared to pain. We value pain much more. However, a lot depends on our reference point. And that's that if I'm really, really wealthy, then what's going to happen is that it's harder for me to have greater joy. And as you can see, when you go to the right, the line starts to flatten out. An example of that is Mark Cuban in that great classic film of cinema, Sharknado 3, I think it was. But anyway, Cuban was playing the President of the United States. And the director wanted Cuban to get mad. And he said, imagine somebody stole $500,000 out of your wallet. And Cuban said, oh, I wouldn't even notice if $500,000 was missing. Yeah, totally different kind of sandboxes than what we play in. By the same token, if you're far left on the curve, like you're destitute or poor, then all of a sudden like $100, $500 could mean the world to you. Again, the slope is much higher for gain than loss. And so the key concepts here is to look at where is the reference point and what part of the curve slope are you on. Another part of that they found tendencies people have is called reference points. And that's that once you have a reference, you have a number stuck in your mind of where something should be at, you're biased towards it. An example is outside the UN, they just asked people, they would spin a wheel and then they would ask them, what percentage of African nations make up the UN? And so when 10 was spun, the guesses went towards 25%. When the number 60 was spun, the guess was 45%. And as irrational it is, just a random number pulled out of the air, that biased people. And where reference points are so powerful is they set perception. And some examples of that are engagement rings. You're supposed to spend 2 months' salary. Who came up with that number? Why is that number real? For that matter, tipping is irrational. Tipping, you're supposed to tip 15 to 20% of the check. But the thing is, you could put in the same amount of work for a $50 meal versus a $500 meal. So why should I tip somebody $100 for 15 minutes worth of work? But that's considered to be, but if you don't pay that, then, you're a cheapskate or whatever. And this is the value of reference points and why they're so powerful. Here's an example that you can go through, and I'll let you just go ahead and read this. But what it comes down to is if you cut price on someone, and especially as a startup, it's the last thing you want to do. And the reason why is once you cut price, you set a reference point. And it's very, very difficult to move that point back up again. So be careful of that.